Hi, welcome back to another episode. What a cliffhanger we left it on. I felt really guilty because I've just been off doing sociable things all week. Went to stay with some friends who are a bubble and it was just delightful. I don't know if you follow me on Instagram, but there's a video of Mackie, my little dog, playing with their dog Moshi, who is an Akita Doberman cross, and he's so cute with her. It's unbelievable how sweet he is with her. And she's about the size of his head, and they just played together for 3 days. So we got back last night. And I took her out for a little walk this morning and she was having none of it. And she's just basically slept all day because for the last 2 days while we've been there, she's not slept at all. And normally she sleeps about 15 hours a day. So I've had a lovely week, but I've had this bubbling at the back of my head. And I purposefully didn't look at all at how the votes were going until today when I sat down to write, because I pre-planned what was going to happen for each vote. And I was like, absolutely not going to back out of this if I see that you guys are voting a different way to the way I want it to go. So with that in mind, let's do chapter 33 of the Audience Adventure. Let's see how it goes. Oh, have I got my accent papers? Yes, here we go. Right, just in case you never know, do you, babes? Right, chapter 33. We haven't got back in time. Chapter 33. There was absolute silence from the Tingians huddled around the motionless bodies. Only the wind rustling the leaves of the hedge top could be heard. As it picked up strength, Marine could hear a gentle whistling of wind through branches. She shuddered and her eyes stung from tiredness and the tears building up behind them. Mortglade couldn't be gone. She just couldn't be. Marine turned away in desolation and moved towards the hole in the hedge. She wanted but to stand by the river and look at all the water rushing past and try not to think about who was to blame. She knew deep down she would decide it was herself. As she stepped towards the gap in the hedge, a hand caught her arm. She looked up to see Briar looking sadly at her. "Don't touch me," Marine snapped, shaking off Briar's hand. "Let me go." Briar's face hardened and Marine suddenly felt childish and petty. "We need to move the bodies," Briar said coldly, "before they attract rats or bigger predators." "Let someone else do it," Marine said faintly. Her stomach had lurched at the thought of touching Mortglade and not having life pulse beneath the older Tingian skin. "I can't do it." She was barely audible now, staring at the ground beneath her feet. "You have to," Briar said more gently than before. "There aren't enough of us to do it without you. Come on, it's important. It's for them as much as us." Marine sagged and then turned on her heels to face her dead friends again. Ezria was still crouched by the still forms on the dry mud. Marine could see silent tears edging down her stony face as she stroked Elef's face. Even in death, Elef looked gentle. Ingo and Joshish had prepared 2 stretchers from branches and springy twigs. They were lined with leaves and looked beautiful, sadly beautiful. Marine moved towards the little huddle of Tingians. "We'll wrap 'em in these oiled cloths," Sinfire explained. "It will cover their scent so they won't attract anything that would pester them. Then it's up to you. We can bury 'em, we can secure them up in the hedge until you can take them back below ground, or we can send them down the river as is our custom." All eyes were on Ezria to decide. She looked down at her fallen comrades and then back up to Sinfire. "We will send them down the river. They died in combat. Their families will not expect them home." Her voice was cracked and straining with a higher pitch than usual. Marine could feel the emotion bursting at Ezria's seams. "Okay," said Sinfire gently. "We'll start with Mortglade. Marine, Kuran, Mulling, gently lift the side of her so I can place a cloth underneath." The 3 Tingians crouched as commanded by the side of Mortglade. Marine was near her head, and she placed her hands on Mortglade's head and shoulder, ready to roll her gently as Mulling and Kuran moved her waist and legs. As Marine's hands made contact with Mortglade's head, Marine let out a shudder, and she saw Mulling and Kuran pull their hands off Mortglade as if they'd been burnt. "What is it?" asked Ezria, looking at Kuran. "I don't know. It's like her skin snapped at me," said Cavern, puzzled, looking down at Mortglade. Ezria's eyes flicked to Marine. Did you feel it too? Marine shook her head. She had felt a curious, sucking, pulsing feeling from her fingers. She leant forward and reached for Mortglade again. Careful, half-whispered Cavern, his eyes wide with fear. Marine ignored him and gently placed the palm of her hand on Mortglade's cheek. She felt energy rushing through her skin and into Mortglade. Her head felt fizzy and cold, bigger than it should be for her skin, and alive with energy. She watched as her hand seemed to turn a strange bluish hue. Her chest felt constricted and tight, and her vision shrunk until it was two tight pools of sight with a dark black fuzzy frame around the edges. Her eyes felt spiky and heavy, as if her skull had got harder and tighter around her brain. Just as Marine felt like she could take no more, she saw Mortglade's eyes snap open and a great, gasping, raspy breath of air shot into her throat on its way to panicked lungs. Mortglade's eyes were looking about wildly, her arms starting to twitch and flail. Marine could feel more of her own energy pounding into Mortglade, and she willed Mortglade to sit up. Marine forced life and energy into Mortglade and laughed aloud as she saw Mortglade smile and a single tear escape from one eye. Eventually Marine pulled her hand away, feeling the blood pumping in her ears. She remembered the other Tingians in the hedge and looked up to see them all looking aghast from her to Mortglade and back again. Scottish as Mortglade, isn't it? Oh, I know how to kill tension. I guess I'm back, Mortglade said quietly, and a laughing sob escaped Marine's lips. What was that? Said Sinfire suspiciously, but Marine wasn't paying her any attention. She darted over to where Elef lay on the floor and pressed a hand into either side of Elef's cheeks. She could feel the sucking sensation, but nowhere near the intensity it had been on Mortglade. Come on, she muttered. You have to want it too, Elef. You have to want to come back. Come on. She forced the thoughts and words towards Elef, willing her to hear them, pushing her to want to come back. The chill crept up her wrists, and she felt the energy find its roots down her arms and out across the flat, wide surface of her palms. She pushed with all her might, not feeling the same acceptance from Elef's body, but not accepting the no she was offered. Marine willed and wheedled, pumping as hard as she could through these veins of spirit she didn't know she had. Marine focused her eyes on Elef's. See the stars again, Elef, she whispered. If you just open your eyes and see the night sky through the leaves, you'll remember all the things you loved and you'll fight with me to get you back here. Elef's eyes flickered open and Marine felt the energy run out of her faster, a more regular pumping now leaching into Elef. Come on, Marine could hear her voice saying as she felt sweat trickling down her face. Marine, stop! It was Briar's voice at her ear. Marine, stop! She could hear them as if they were far away, but she ignored the call. She couldn't stop now. She could see Elef's face twitching and moving and waking up. She could feel warmth developing beneath her fingers. If she stopped now, Elef would slip away again. She wasn't strong enough yet not to stay on her own. Marine, can you hear us? Karan's voice now worried and warm. Of course she could hear them, Marine thought irritably. She was right here. She was busy. Could they not see what she was doing? Marine looked back at Elef's face and then realised she couldn't actually see it. She could see a faded, fluffy memory of Elef's face against a swirling black vortex. She blinked and tried to focus, but there was nothing she could do to bring her eyes back to the real world. Marine tried to wrench her hand off Elef's face, but it felt glued to its position as if squelching, sucking mud held it there. She tried to focus on her knees, on the dry mud, to keep herself grounded, but she realised she couldn't feel anything around her except the contact of her hands on Elef's skin. She couldn't feel anything, couldn't see, couldn't think, didn't really want to think anyway. Marine's hands fell to her side, and she accepted this new state of nothing. Boy, there you go. There's your chapter. There's chapter 33. Now, so you got them back to life. Well done. Shall I tell you what your other options were? What did you narrowly avoid? Does it give any spoilers on other things? No. Okay. So you had move the bodies, brings them both back to life, but something negative happens to Marine. I don't know what that'll be yet. It'll depend on your voting. Go back round the families. Marine doesn't go. She stays to guard the bodies, and she gets Elef back to life, but not Mortglade. If they'd waited for the families as planned, Marine would have worked out how to use the other Tingians to bring everyone back to life without hurting herself. Or if they had gone straight below ground, they would have stayed dead, but it would have had a positive effect to another part of the story. So I think you got, well, I mean, depending on what happens, it could be the end of Marine. I don't know. We'll have to see where the votes go, won't we? But you got the wish. Elef, Dirkus, you should be thrilled. Elef is alive again. Everybody, I can't remember who it was. Was it Catherine? Somebody was very sad that it had got negative. I'm very sorry. Hopefully that's cheered you all back up again and it's back to pure escapism. For tomorrow, for Saturday, our midnight extravaganza, you need to choose a location. You can choose the Cavern, Vanweer's office, grass, or the streets of the city. Those are your 4 options. The Cavern, Vanweer's office, grass, or the streets of the city. And that will have an impact on the next part of the story. I hope you've enjoyed this. I am on Twitter. I'm probably on the M23 actually, coming back from Bracknell. Ooh, but enjoy. I hope you've enjoyed the chapter and chatting to each other and nonsense, and well done for getting through a troubling week in the world, aren't they bloody all? But we did it. It's Friday night, and I'll see you live tomorrow at 5 to midnight. Lots of love. Goodbye.